I saw another thing, and I know I'm just like, I saw this other thing on Twitter.
Yeah.
But I did.
The discourse.
It's the discourse. Thank you. I did.
D.
But it was somebody, they were pointing out too, that like, seems like whenever the Academy actually awards a filmmaker at the height, it's like the only 2 times they really got the timing right were Roman Polanski.
I saw this tweet.
And Woody Allen.
Of course I saw this tweet. Of course I saw this fucking tweet. I actually only just saw it pretty right before it came out, which is so funny. But I was like, it's so true.
I love it. Somebody does when they do their homework. Hey, Chelsea.
Hey, Victoria.
You know what I need?
What?
I think one of those big old breaths of fresh movie.
Oh my God, I want a breath of fresh movie too. Let's go.
Breathe it in. Okay.
That's a movie I like to see.
This is a Breath of Fresh Movie, a podcast where I, Victoria Harley,
and I, Chelsea Pope,
we watch a movie that neither one of us has ever seen, and then we talk about it. Whee! And we don't talk about everything, but we will talk about anything.
That I really like that. That's so succinct. That's to the point. Because I don't want to feel burdened to have to be like every single detail of this movie.
I'm not going to apologize. No more apologies. That's
no more.
It.
I'm never sorry again.
Turn back now if this is,
Yeah. Turn back now.
Yeah. Sorry, my headphones are making I don't like it. They're like on my jaw. I was clicking. Yeah. Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. Doing okay? Just living. Getting through it.
Today's episode is the 1976 crime drama Mikey and Nicky, written and directed by Elaine May. Got back into May.
Congratulations, Elaine May, on your well-deserved Oscar.
Yes.
And even though we've already kind of been talking shit on the Oscars and like as an institution and stuff, and you didn't need that validation, it's cool you got the recognition.
Yeah. I heard she had a great speech.
Oh, fuck, I want to see it.
Full of,
is it on YouTube? I haven't looked yet.
I haven't looked either, but I heard it was full of zingers.
It's fucked up that
we missed
they wouldn't fucking put that in the show. Yeah, I'm cussing. I don't even care.
Yeah, it's okay. We checked the explicit box.
How fucking dare you, Academy? And then we gotta sit through choreographed dances through the in memoriam.
You know who should host the Oscars? Elaine May.
If it's like, can we
let her just
before it's too late. You know what I'm saying? Good. Not to be a dick, but
so good. She would be ruthless. People think Ricky Gervais is ruthless.
I'd be so down.
Oh my God.
I'd be so down.
Oh, there's a timeline. There's an alternate timeline.
Ageism sucks.
There's an alternate timeline of history where she hosts the Oscars. There's also got to be one where Joan Rivers gets the Tonight Show, and it changes everything. There's suddenly women in writers' rooms.
This is how we know we're not on the best timeline.
Exactly, because Joan Rivers didn't get the Tonight Show. I'm telling you, I really think that would have had insane ripple effects for late night TV writing, comedy writing.
Absolutely.
And just
I never doubt that.
Just shows in general, networks taking chances on things that are oh, look, a woman can draw an audience.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Absolutely.
Anyway, that's
unfortunate.
Well, beside the point. But yes, congratulations on that Oscar.
Hell yeah, girl.
Tastic. Well deserved.
We are celebrating one of your iconic Criterion films.
Here, let me get the log on now.
Yeah.
Here's the log. Oh, so this movie is starring John Cassavetes and Peter Falk. There are some other people. Ned Beatty's in there. I was glad to see him. He was in Network.
Yeah.
Good to see that face again.
I know, right? What a charming guy. Yeah. What a nice guy.
Exactly. This is a movie about one petty hoodlum's lifelong friendship with another, and that friendship allows one to lead a hitman to the other. They're after Nicky. I mean, they're after Nicky.
Basically, Mikey's trying to look out for Nicky, but Nicky's Nicky
stole some money from a mob guy, and the movie opens with him holed up in a hotel room, and he calls Mikey saying, "I need help." And so Mikey comes and it becomes this kind of I think the phrase chess game gets thrown around too liberally, but it's a story about toxic friendships. Yeah.
I think it's really a toxic friendship, and what happens when you sometimes a bridge burns slowly.
Yeah.
A bridge burns slowly and then it incinerates overnight, and that's what this movie feels like, and it's kind of brutal. Because you don't see a lot of films that I think really call out that kind of dynamic of a failed relationship, whether it's between two men, whether it's a relationship or two, whatever. It's like, I think we see a lot of these sort of friendships that endure, or through thick and thin, or we sort of romanticize this ideal of like us against the world. I don't know. This was a sobering but very like interesting look.
No, that's what I wanted to know. Like, it was like when the credits came up, like what were you feeling?
My feeling was you obviously we're getting into spoilers, so
we covered it.
So we covered the spoilers. Basically, by the end of the night, Nicky is offed, but what becomes a real turning point is that Mikey abandons the act of trying to get him to safety, getting him out of there, and there's a turning point, and it's a boiling point that clearly, as you learn throughout the rest of the film, and you've even picked up to a certain point. I mean, you've kind of pick up through a lot of different cues of things, and in conversation, Nicky kind of, whether or not he likes it, takes for granted, has taken for granted every person in his life.
Oh, yeah.
Which is why his wife won't let him come home, or, the woman that he sleeps with, just like she's trying to pimp her out, like I say that sort of, well, it's like
it's too brutal to describe what actually goes on.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It was a very nice way of me put it. But he's someone who's clearly literally the only person left in the world that could look out for him is this guy, Mikey. And it gets to this point where, and actually turning point really too, is when Mikey is sexually rejected. Yeah, which I find very interesting, because that is actually really the turning point of their relationship, is when he's rejected, because not that I think no matter what Nicky said, Mikey was gonna be like, fuck you. I do think though that Nicky's natural behavior to be very kind of, in spite of the fact that he's being pursued, a little bit, it just kind of flagrant and loose lipped and a little just too jokey, and just that shit, on top of the fact that this guy Mikey has had this lifetime of being in this guy's shadow, of not really being kind of loved and respected by literally his own father, his own family, and that he's not even attractive enough to have casual sex with, and just that this thing boils over, and then this guy breaks this watch that you find out later wasn't even something that was even like, it's something he coveted from his father. This father never even like wanted to really give, like he had to get it secondhand, and which is just like, the more I learned about this Mikey guy, I was like, yeah, exactly. Like we were talking about in text, our initial reactions after watching the movie. It's like, can't help but like feel and relate to this guy who just is constantly having constantly been rejected, and been the second fiddle to this more kind of charming, better looking, more like charismatic, that friend of his. And
that is so much what I love about this movie. Is that, first of all, they're really low-level mobsters. Like, this is technically a crime
drama. They're cronies.
They're all kind of, they're definitely not people making decisions. They're the kind of guys who are grizzled and have been around, and they've
been given grunt work, and
everybody is very much a working man in this, especially the hitman, who's like,
but again, great casting.
Oh, Ned Beatty, casting against type. Casting as type, perfect. Like,
what a great guy.
But what I love is like this idea that, will people really, Mikey doesn't kill Nicky, but in a way he participates in his demise.
He's a participant, because he could have still tried to protect him, but there's a turning point.
But I think it's really fascinating. The gasoline, it's these things, it's these long held resentments, it's these things that are just, gasoline's not the right word, because it's more of it's a gas leak, and then Nicky lights a match. Is basically what kind of happens with this relationship. It's so much more about, men can be so emotional, but only with each other.
Right.
And like never.
And when it's repressed like that, and it's so, And again, you reach that boiling point.
I mean, as much as this movie is about toxicity, which is such a word, right? I think
I know
machismo might have been the word we used to use, right?
Yeah, like it's easy to disregard now how overused the term toxic masculinity is, but it directly affects how their relationship is with each other.
It does.
It affects, even though there's these peripheral women kind of in the films, they're fascinating characters in my opinion.
Treated. Yeah,
and it's also it shows so much about this dynamic of how all of these characters see the world and themselves. And it really paints a picture of this world that they have to, the rules of their life and their city is different than,
other people's.
It's not, it's very interesting.
Although this whole thing is incited by Nicky's actions and both immediate and long term, I think it's interesting that all one needs really to motivate like murder in a story is to create that resentment. Yeah. Like people will kill, people will lose control over something like that. I think sometimes like drama, it can come out of it comes from a much hotter, whiter, closer to the nerve place. Yeah. It's, oh shit, these people have an intimacy, which is why they can target that pain. Yeah. And yet there was also this incredibly like touching moment when Mikey, Nicky is so paranoid when he first calls him. Right. And, there's a whole progress of him getting into the building, which is just great. I got your towel. But then when they're inside and Nicky finally can exhale, they have this embrace, this like, I mean, they're really close together. It's like hands on neck and shoulders. And like he sobs. Yeah. Sobs.
They're very vulnerable in that moment.
Oh and my God.
To see an arc like that where this friend is putting his life on the line to be their first friend all the way to the point where we reach at the end over the course of one night. It's just.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's tragic.
I kind of feel Mikey always knew and sort of understood that like once Nicky stole the money, that's it. Like he's gonna die. So when he shows up, he is complicit. He's part of the plan. Sure. Like I was so relieved when like that was revealed right away because I was like, because immediately I'm like, oh, Mikey's behind it. Yeah, or like Mikey's involved. And like
low key, like Nicky kind of knows that
he does,
and that's why. So like, okay, he's confrontational to certain points, but at the same time, it's like
he knows it might be his last night on Earth, and he knows that his friend is probably involved, and he knows that you're trying to keep me here. Mm-hmm. I mean, that scene where he's smiling at him because he's like, I know your shit. And then the smile drops because he realizes I'm going to die. Yeah. And that kind of leads Nicky to get to have this one last night of imposition on his old friend. Yeah. The only person he can rest. I mean, he tries, you're right. He visits his ex. He visits this other
woman. Picks up the other woman at the bar. Like he's fucking around a lot. Like at first I was kind of being like, why is this guy being such a stupid asshole? But like when you put it in that context of like, oh, he kind of knows this is his last big hurrah.
Oh, I mean, he confronts those black people in the bar. Yeah. I mean, he's doing all this crazy bullshit. But there's just like everything is on the edge of a knife. Like at one point he goes into this candy shop and the guy it looks more like a bodega, but the guy running the candy shop immediately reaches for a gun, like just the knowledge that at any moment something could pop off. Yeah. Now this was set and filmed in Philadelphia where Elaine May grew up, and I guess her family wasn't exactly connected, but I guess they did know a few kind of low level mob type people. So this is very much based on her, personal recollections and experiences.
Yeah, there was a lot of thought put into how somebody can really realistically navigate themselves in those circumstances. Like it wasn't lazy, like in terms of like there wasn't a suspension of disbelief in terms of like everything was a consequence of the thing that had just happened before, which is just, I think, just good, great, competent, tight writing. And it shows a thoughtfulness towards what the realistic circumstances of both of them potentially being pursued by a hitman would look like.
I mean, the fact that the hitman is late 45 minutes because he didn't ask for directions. He just got the address, and he gets lost on the way.
I like that. And again, great casting to have this
Ned
guy. He's just like, I'm just going to do this fucking thing. I'm not
he's
even getting paid for this.
Yeah, and he's explaining, like, I turned down 2 other jobs because this job was supposed to be easy.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, why didn't you bring a driver? Well, because it wasn't supposed to need a driver. It was supposed to be simple.
This is supposed to be simple.
And then he's
I'm not even getting paid enough.
And then he's like, no, I have to finish this job because it's supposed to be easy. And if I can't do it, what does that say about me?
Right. Oh my God. And see, so that turns into this greater, absolutely. Yeah. It turns into this even greater, further testament about like people performing their...
It's murder. It's just murder incorporated.
Yeah,
right?
It's murder incorporated. Yeah, exactly. It's just like identity.
Yeah.
And this threat of what your value and your selfhood is, and which Mikey obviously feels derided on, and Nicky has overextended his loans on. Like, this idea of sort of personhood and whatever your value.
Yeah, there's even some line,
self-perception,
right? And there's even some line about all these guys are paranoid.
Yeah,
you know, like, and they are.
All these guys are so paranoid about their status, their value, their worth.
Yeah,
even not just their like whether to stay alive or get executed, but just in terms of like what is my. Like what's my purpose, I guess, or like, am I even valued? Like, does anybody even care what I do? Like, what is my importance if I'm, you know, beyond this title or this livelihood? And Murder Incorporated. This is like the capitalist murder agenda at play.
The contract part of Contract Killer was never so like clear to me or something. You know,
I liked that he was kind of the anti-Shigger from No Country.
Yeah,
like No Country for Old Men. He is such a menacing, terrifying. He's not even about like he has his own personal contract that isn't, which in a way, you know, Ned's character has this contract as well in terms of his identity, but the way that manifests, it is very like this anti-Shigger.
I also remember hearing or reading somewhere that, and in fact, I think it was like I was reading about the Kennedys, you know, Bobby and John, and how at that point James Bond, like Ian Fleming's books had been out for a few years, and maybe one of the films had come out. And I think in their mind, they were like picturing like, oh, these spy people, we're going to meet with one of them and how exciting. And they were so disappointed because the guy who showed up probably looked more like Ned Beatty than like Sean Connery.
Right.
But the fact is CIA spies, like espionage people are supposed to be very forgettable looking. They're not beautiful. They're not in good shape.
Yeah,
I mean, they're in decent enough shape.
You have to blend.
And Ned Beatty looks like a dude from Philly. Well, okay, before we get into some other stuff, have you ever had a Nicky in your life?
Absolutely.
Have you had more than one? I feel like I've had a couple.
It's fucked up to say, but like, yeah, my sister's the Nicky in my life.
Oh, shit.
You know, I mean,
that's rough.
I mean, again, this is like, you know, whatever. I'm oversharing. It's fine. I've said worse things on this podcast, but you know, she's, we've been through it. Like, and she, like we've worn each other to our respective limits before. And there was a part of me that always felt she was the more like kind of charismatic and likable. So, like there was very triggering stuff I was seeing in this in terms of just because I've had to have been leaned on and or I had to be leaned on in certain circumstances where you know, and anyway, not to get so heavy about it, but just like, you know, these things, these dynamics, even with, you know, it's like absolutely there's been friends that do that too, and you have like this sort of codependent relationship with it, which I would say Mikey ultimately has.
He participates in it.
He's
complicit.
And it comes down to this feeling of wanting to feel that you're providing and that you're needed.
Yeah.
And that you're kind of validated through them by what you can provide for them. Yeah. And that is such a toxic dynamic. And when you hit your limit, there's suddenly so much resentment and hate that can come up when you hit that, when you cut that off and you're suddenly on the opposite side of it.
And like both for them and at yourself for letting it go on so long. Because you're like, what the fuck was I thinking?
Yeah.
Like, how did I let this happen again?
I mean, you hear him even like up to the very end when he's talking to his wife right before Nicky shows up at the door and he shares the whole watch thing. He's like, my dad never smiled for anybody, but he liked Nicky. And he's like, and then when he confronts the mob boss earlier and was just like, I know you don't like me that much. Like he just basically was trying to call it out in the moment because he had already been like they'd been talking about it the whole night and he'd been thinking about it all night.
Yeah.
And the guy was just like, you clearly see there's this weird paternal relationship they have. And
you know who that mob boss was played by?
Meisner. Yeah.
Wasn't that crazy?
It was interesting to see.
I mean, but this is such an actor's movie.
It is. Yeah.
Oh my God. It's so great. I also I've had multiple Nickies in my life.
Yeah.
None of them were so far back as like kid childhood.
Oh,
like,
sure.
So I mean, there was an intimacy. I mean, of course, like with your sister. I mean, that's from birth, right?
No, but
so,
I mean,
and that's not to
it's
compare.
not a competition.
It's not a competition. I'm just saying, I had that experience on a
You're
different
allowed
level.
to get treated like shit too.
I can be treated like shit. I'm really good at asking to be treated like shit. Apparently,
oh man,
I'm bad at recognizing that. Sometimes what happens too is like, you know, you meet somebody who they're kind of difficult, but you know, they like you and you sort of feel validated by that. Like,
oh my God, absolutely.
Like they're so picky and cynical, but I made the cut.
Yes.
And so you kind of
absolutely.
like, but I have had more than one friend in my life where it just, that giving and not receiving. Like Mikey has a certain clarity of sight about Nicky and his situation and how he's kind of destroyed himself by doing this, and it's for such a little amount of money. It's so sad. But Mikey, that like the end where he's barricading that door, it's like I can't think of a better visual metaphor for the concept of boundaries.
Yeah.
That was a person
cutting someone off.
Yes,
and being
that
like,
was
you have to
it.
face your consequences.
And them
done.
being shot to death on your front porch.
And then the way it ended so abruptly too, part of me was like, "Oh fuck!" And then the other part of me was like,
"Yep,
yeah,
that's the end.
That's the end of this. That's the end of this relationship and the movie.
Yep,
it
over.
is.
Yep." It was great.
It was great. There's something I think deliberately jarring about that.
Yeah. I mean, there's some great lines that I wrote down. I just don't want to do it anymore. Friendship.
Yeah.
Just don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
You never call. And then also, unless you're sick or in trouble, you don't even know I'm alive.
It's just so sad. This is such a breakup movie.
Oh my God. It is
such a breakup movie.
A breakup movie.
Just so sad.
Yeah.
When you think about it.
Yeah. And it's the whole thing about Mikey being called the Echo.
Yeah.
Do you find that I have to repeat myself? Like he feels like nobody's listening.
Yeah.
And that, like Nicky makes this joke. Mikey is, you know why he's called the Echo? Like, because he has to say everything twice or something. Or he's got like a tunnel in his head. He has to say everything twice. And Mikey like had overheard this joke being told and took it real hard at the time.
Yeah.
And there's a whole discussion about it. I mean, it really is like they're analyzing their interactions, their relationships. Like it is such, so much just about two men contending with each other. And like so many of Elaine May's films, I mean, she really has, when women write stories about men, it's so, you can take away the stupid, cool bullshit and just have a man forcing an antacid tablet into another man's mouth while he sits on top of him.
You can see these very emotionally vulnerable. Not that men can't tell vulnerable stories,
no,
or whatever,
of course they can. But
like,
there's something. I mean,
it says a lot that Elaine had this perspective of having been around, and also too having been in Hollywood and being surrounded and treated by toxic
women
toxic
female directors to this day are not treated as if with respect.
And I think it's
by crews especially.
When you see so many kind of distasteful scenes between the men and the few times you see women in this film, I think it's very intentional, and you should feel uncomfortable.
Oh God.
And it's
so uncomfortable.
And it's you should not feel okay at the end of those scenes, and I certainly didn't.
No. So there's a woman played by Carol Grace, Nellie.
Yeah.
Who Carol Grace apparently was married to Walter Matthau.
Good for her.
Anyway, she's Nellie, and Nellie that scene was tough. That is like this woman that John Cassavetes' character Nicky is seeing on the side, and they show up, and he sort of just emotionally manipulates her into
sex,
which they have basically beside the sofa on the floor of the living room while Mikey stands. Well, first he's standing in the kitchen, then he sits down on top of like a trash can and has a cigarette.
Great nonverbal acting in that whole scene.
And
on his end.
And it's such a great shot because it's this wide and it's so impersonal. But I think what's worse than that moment is like, well, I mean, obviously it's worse.
The scene after
what comes after,
worse,
where
obviously
Nicky is explaining to Mikey after he's just orgasmed into this woman who's now standing foreground in the shot, this wide shot. She's in the foreground. We can see her face. And they're in the kitchen, and Nicky is basically offering her to him sexually.
Yeah.
And talking about it as if she can't hear.
Yeah.
She can hear every fucking thing.
Yeah.
And you should feel disgusting.
Oh, it's so disgusting. And then the way Mikey reacts to it too.
And like he starts out trying to be like a good dude to her, but then like
no, he quickly loses it because he takes it so personally, and he clearly is feeling so much resentment towards Nicky that he takes it out physically on her, which is awful to see.
Oh, it's so upsetting.
And
also like that's the thing, Mikey, who as much as he seems like the good one, neither of these people are likable. Like, in fact, the tagline for this movie was Mikey and Nicky, don't expect to like them.
Yeah, no, they're from top to bottom, and I actually really loved that about this movie, and I love that about like a woman making a movie about unlikable people and standing by it. Like, I love that so much.
No one's free from.
I think I really do appreciate that. Although, I mean, obviously, I have my exceptions. There are certain times I've watched things and I'm just like, I fucking hate these people. And it's usually when I'm watching movies about like upper middle class people cheating on each other in marriage, like usually it's those movies I'm just like, I hate everyone in this so much. Boring. Yeah. But it's a different context, but you get what I mean. Like in this case, I appreciate somebody making a story and challenging us to see and look into a relationship that exists between these unlikable people.
No, I completely agree.
And, you know, it's still just putting us in it, you know?
Yeah, and like there's so many moments in this story where I don't know if it was just Philly in the 70s where people just resort to physical violence and like just fighting without really anyone ever getting too upset about it. Like no one's trying to call the cops.
There's a lot of casual violence.
Casual violence. Yeah. And I'm like, oh,
I mean, formal violence, and I don't know,
formal,
weird
organized violence and disorganized violence. Yeah.
Weird terminology.
I think it's worth noting though that, okay, this came out in 76, but it was filmed in 1973 because Elaine shot a lot of footage.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, right.
Okay. Now she did what filmmakers now do, like the whole Apatow method, right? Of you shoot everything.
Yeah, I think the Coen brothers similarly.
Yeah, you let people improvise.
Stanley Kubrick did this. He shot 1 million takes of everything.
Yeah,
you know?
Right. The thing is, though, the original budget was $1.6 million, and it grew to $2.2 million. And so the film, Elaine May, as we've talked about in the last 2 episodes we've covered about her, our very first one and our 20th episode, every movie she makes somehow ends up in litigation in some way. Like she sued to try to get her name taken off a New Leaf when they redid the cut that she didn't like, because you remember she wanted the 3-hour cut anyway, and she lost that. The Heartbreak Kid, there were also like legal issues. This movie, again, because it exceeded budget, Fox dropped it. It goes to Paramount, and then Paramount like inks what's supposed to be this ironclad deal, but like you can't do that with Elaine May. But she said, "Hey, deduct any costs that go over budget from my salary. That's fine. I don't care. In exchange for final cut, like I have to have final cut." And they agreed. Said you got 1.8 million and you got to deliver by 1974. Again, like you're not gonna get
which
that.
We know.
Her budget grew to 4.3 million.
Oh my gosh.
She missed the delivery date. Litigation began between her and Paramount because she shot 1.4 million feet of film. That's 3 times more as Gone with the Wind. And
it's a lot.
So just for reference, a 2-hour movie is about 11,000 feet.
Yeah. Yeah, so
it's a lot of footage. And again, I mentioned like the Apatow thing, but what she was doing was running multiple cameras at once on a scene of actors working and going through the scenes together. And actually, none of this was improvised. This is all very much script, but she spent lots of time with this, like shot lots of footage. I mean, some people quit during this movie. I mean, she was.
You know.
People were like, "What are you doing? This is insane."
could see that.
Like, she's like, "No, don't turn that off. I didn't call cut." Like, you know,
it's a lot.
Like, literally, the famous story is that Peter Falk and John Cassavetes ended their scene, walked off, and she left the cameras rolling. And the like first AD tried to call cut, and she was like, "What are you doing?" You know, like, first of all, I'm the only one who can call cut. He was like, "Well, they left." She's like, "Yeah, but they might come back."
Oh my God, Elaine, girl.
She's insane. I fucking love her.
No, I do love that, actually. I love that she was so like ballsy and boundary pushing as a female director. Just I almost like in her own way she was doing this dick swinging. Like we
would respect the hell out of this. Like for
what's his face with I Heart Huckabees and fucking Stanley Kubrick too. And like they've pushed their people and they've done this and that, and then like. And basically, I'm being like, she was annoying on set, girl boss.
Exactly.
Girl boss.
I mean, it just...
No,
it's incredible. And Cassavetes wanted to work with Elaine May.
Like, right, yeah.
He was so
there was
keen.
There was a lot of shared passion in this project. And, you know, I mean, I am going to squeeze in a criticism.
No,
which,
do it, please.
You know, for all of our praise for Elaine, I will say one of the first things I was critical of this film. One of the only things I'm critical of is just I don't love the way it was cut. Which I know, obviously, part of that is it's been and a lot of her films in general just been through such a butchering.
They have. And however, the version we watched
is supposed to be the one that she elects, but at the same time, there were just certain moments that were like cutting back and forth, like. Or we're cutting away from something when the momentum was building. I was like, this feels like I could totally see there being a justification for why this went, you know, why we went back to Mikey's face when Nicky is having this moment. But also I still think I don't know. It just, there were certain, and also the way the movie even just starts, like there isn't like an establishing shot, like it just kind of jumps right into
we're in the room.
We're in the room.
We see like
and it's very
the newspaper headline that tells us somebody's his part. Like we don't know yet, but it's like,
maybe this is a criticism. I'm going to do a Zola and walk back like as I'm saying it, because I also understand tonally and you know, story wise, why there is this sort of jarring cuts, these moments that are just very sort of, clearly it's intentional.
Yeah. I mean,
I think I just wasn't always up to speed on it, and it would take me out of it at moments.
I think that's reasonable. And I mean, one could say, well, the story is very haphazard in its timeline, right? Because I mean, it's like, again, like,
and the opening matches the ending, like in terms of this abrupt and this back and forth, and the raised tensions, and like there's an intensity that's kind of happening, you know, the bookends this movie really, that it's fitting. There were just times I was a little taken out. That's all.
No, I think that's fair. I think it's completely fair.
Or like I really enjoyed, she'd be doing something that was like a tracking shot, and then suddenly it would get it would go static, and I was just like, I would have liked if that had gone slightly longer.
Yeah, I mean it had like it's not just because it was in New York in the 70s. It's hard not to use the phrase gritty, you know? Yeah. I mean, it's like, damn it.
But yeah, gritty
is not New York. It's Philadelphia.
Yeah, no, but it is a gritty. But gritty is the good word for it.
It has like a wet night asphalt pavement
vibe.
Kind of, yeah.
It's a choppy.
It's sort of wet and hard and
chilly,
cold.
Chilly.
Yeah, it's
chilly.
It's a mood. It's such a mood.
Yeah.
Cassavetes looks like he hasn't slept in decades. You know, when you meet him, he's just,
you feel some of that tired energy too. Like but in a way where it's like you're like you're being brought emotionally into that feeling.
No,
I guess like we were getting that panicked feeling from Nicky, and then we're getting the moments with Mikey. Then there's like the wide shots of that, like certain things that I thought really worked really well. Like for instance, in the apartment with Nellie, or when he first goes to the diner, he's just trying to get some coffee, and the guy can't give him the creamer.
Yeah,
and that's all just done in a wide shot. And it feels
it's so good.
It feels like a very kind of the comedy instincts there are really working, because she wants you to keep in mind the foreground the context of this like building up conflict.
Well, yeah. I mean, because what happens is that like, Mikey has to go and get cream because his friend Nicky has an ulcer. Yeah. And Nicky is so paranoid, and he's like, if you go, you're going to just come back with the cops or come back with somebody. So he's like, you have to get him back in 10 minutes.
Yeah. So it's like, there's this timing. He's got to move quickly.
So, and the way Mikey's taking it so seriously, that he gets that drastic in his action, tells you that 10 minutes is real. Like, that's a very real deadline.
Yeah.
And so, he's trying to bargain with this guy. Like, okay, what if I got a cup of coffee and it comes with a little thing of cream? Can I just buy the cream? No, we don't sell
And the guy's like, no, I don't have any container.
Like, well, what if I order 15 cups of coffee and hold the coffee? I'll just take the cream. And, eventually he's almost there. He's almost got it worked out. And he just
loses his patience.
Hops over the counter, just starts choking the guy out, or trying to.
Yeah, he just jumps to assault.
And there's two women at the counter who are kind of like laughing almost, like, what's going on? Like, no one's
Casual violence.
No one's in a hurry to really stop anything, but it felt very much like a documentary.
Yeah.
There's another moment where they're trying to choke out the bus driver which is like, this guy's enormous, you can't do it. Which, by the way, that bus driver is played by Emmett Walsh, who has shown up in a lot of like Coen Brothers movies. He was also in The Righteous Gemstones. He's the crazy grandpa.
Yeah.
Same guy.
My God.
Everything he's in is fantastic. Anytime Emmett Walsh is in a movie, the rating goes up. Anyway, same with Ned Beatty. On that topic, best supporting player. Who's your favorite?
Again, I think actually, there's a few, and I like Ned Beatty's character. I'm blanking. She's the hitman. I like.
Oh yeah, his name is Kinney.
There we go. I liked Nellie too, but I also I just really liked the lady on the bus. Is like, you can't smoke on here. Yeah. I'm telling. She was just so like unintimidated. She's like, that's not. And the guy like pulls out. She's like, that's supposed to scare me.
Yeah.
I felt like it felt very like, what if Elaine May was on the bus? I don't mess with
your types.
I felt like Elaine May, like if she had been confronted with the gun on the bus. Like this is very I'm not afraid.
I loved those bus scenes. Yeah. Because there's something too about them sitting on that, even just the space, they're thrust right together. When you ride on a bus with somebody, there's
a very sort of vulnerable, it's a humbling mode of transportation.
It is. It's very bright inside. Like, some of the brightestly lit scenes we have are on this bus.
It's very much an equalizer.
It is an equalizer.
No matter who you are, you can't have an ego on the bus. You're on the bus.
Oh yeah. No, I love those bus scenes. I thought those were really powerful.
Especially again, just once the gun and just you think that's supposed to scare me.
Yeah.
I
think the bus driver's too short. I feel like it's sort of my pick for best supporting, but I think I want to pick Nellie because the woman of she was a great
performance was fantastic.
She was great
performance.
But I think Annie, who plays Mikey's wife,
she's great at the end too.
She was great at the end, and I loved how frustrating she was the first time we meet her.
Right.
Like,
she's so fucking...
She needs to write this address down, and she needs to write it down so fast. Like, he's about to, like, I can't... And she, like, asks her small child to, can you get me a crayon? Like, I need paper. And it's so... You're like, you feel this, like, oh my God, hurry up. Oh my God, hurry up.
She's just like, I know this is some, like, like, I think she takes... Again, it's a very kind of almost... casual thing for I got her conflated with Nikki's wife at first.
Well, it's easy. Yeah.
But
I think Nikki's wife was Jan.
Yeah, she's the one
Joyce
who's
Van
far
Patten.
more like pissed off, but then she has that she flips because Nikki's he charms her, he flips her,
and that's believable. I gotta say,
when you have history with someone too.
Oh no, I found that so believable.
You have their baby.
Like, oh my God.
And
then he like felt all rejected because the little baby wouldn't. Like,
the baby wasn't gonna fuck with him because he's just not really around.
Like, how do you feel rejected by a baby though? Like, come on, dude, you're so sensitive.
In a sense, I was like, that's It's like kind of like, I don't know. Mickey probably would have felt satisfied knowing that that Nicky's baby rejected.
Yeah, I think so.
Mikey would probably been like, yeah.
Yeah. And I know we usually talk, director's chair. We have covered a lot of Elaine May's history, again, on our very first episode and on episode 20. So I encourage people to go check those out if you want to know more about her background.
For sure.
I feel like the details around the production were just like pretty indicative of her and her style. So if you want to know more, she's fascinating. Find out more about Elaine May. She just won an Oscar.
Hell yeah.
Right. There was a fight over this one, right? And she learned from her experience on A New Leaf. She refused to turn over all the footage.
Right.
So she hid 2 important reels in a friend's garage. Eventually, she did turn them over, and she didn't direct for over a decade after that.
What a crazy thing to dealing with Hollywood with like you're literally like hiding your like reels of footage that you shot. Like what?
She wasn't taking any chances.
Crazy. Well, just its interest, just the physical medium of film being the way it was. That
I know.
In that sense,
I know
like,
it's powerful. It's great.
Yeah.
Well, Paramount, of course, took it back. They cut it very poorly. A lot of continuity issues, I guess. It was rushed to theaters for only a few days.
Right. Yeah. Just out of just the bare minimum.
Yeah. Not very supported. In 1986, the MoMA, Museum of Modern Art in New York, they screened it like for, I don't know, it was part of some kind of anniversary or something. And that was sort of like her, at that time, her cut, which had never been seen properly. And then Criterion, of course, the 2019, this is kind of like her final cut version. This is, so it's great. I love that the Criterion, I feel like that's a real nice gift. I wish they would do it for The Heartbreak Kid.
Yeah.
They got to get that shit, the rights for that one. I mean, that we talked about that one on The Heartbreak Kid, episode 20. Learned about it. It was frustrating. And so, she doesn't direct for 10 years. And then Warren Beatty begs her to come out of retirement, and they make Ishtar, which everyone laughs at as the like biggest flop ever made. And it's like, she can't make a movie that isn't troubled and beset with problems.
Like, just what a history to go through that time and time again.
Yeah.
In a sense, it's inspiring to see a lightning rod like that in history, in film history, and as a woman. But at the same time, just like how exhausting must that have all been?
Man,
I'm exhausted for her.
I think though, like that climate, that time, she really was amazing.
Yeah, she went through the ringer, so like it wouldn't have to be hopefully that fucking bad for the rest of us.
I know, right? I have some reviews.
Alrighty.
Okay. Richard Brody of The New Yorker points out that more than 20 years before The Sopranos, Elaine May is shooting the private family life of small-time crooks with their petty troubles, their marital crises, their feelings toward their children, intimate stories, and the specter of death hanging over it all. So she was on the money. Oh, and something I didn't mention was, so she wrote this over a period of years and years and years. And as we said, it came out in 76, but they began filming in 73. The Godfather came out, if I'm not mistaken, 72 or 73. And there's nothing, she was not inspired by that. This is
its own thing.
This is its own very original story.
Yes.
Like, I just want to make that clear.
If Godfather's Hamlet, this is the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead of mobster movies in a way.
Love it. No, that's totally.
That's my these are the 2 peripheral guys that are just like, what's my fucking purpose?
I mean,
who are we to each other?
When we were talking about Only Lovers Left Alive, we talked about the proliferation of these vampire movies that came out in like 2013, 2014.
Right.
We were like 3 pretty big. There was like What We Do in the Shadows and A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. And then this one as well. And, we were acknowledging that like, although they seem to be in similar tone, like they all kind of had their own
perspective of the like that history and symbolism and mythos. I think people talked about The Godfather. It's a very romantic view of the mob. I mean, I love that movie. I do. Right, yeah.
But it is like, it's about the heads of the families. It's about the people who are very important. It's operatic. It's high drama. It's family. It is our Shakespeare.
We see a lot of like history and wealth and a lot of
this movie
presenting.
Yeah, this movie, I mean, in a way, Goodfellas was kind of trying to be that movie that showed the other version, right? The more, and of course we found out that Divorce Italian style kind of like influenced Goodfellas. But I just think this is such a Well, let's quote Peter Bradshaw from The Guardian. A vivid, almost sensually rancid slice of 1970s cinema. A movie in which you can almost taste the sweat in the air.
Yeah, this is a sweaty movie.
It's a sweaty movie, guys.
Everybody's kind of gross in this movie.
If you could smell this movie, you'd be able to taste it too.
Yeah, it's like salty.
It's gross.
This is a salty movie.
Dave Kerr of the Chicago Reader said, what emerges is a profound, unsentimental portrait of male friendship and of its ultimate impossibility.
That's brutal.
That is brutal.
Yeah.
Are men incapable of friendship?
Yeah, that.
Oh my God.
That quote implies like so much more about that guy.
Yeah.
And like whatever is going on with his bromances. Like clearly he's had his bro heart broken.
I wrote it down.
Yeah, it's a good quote. Well, it's also like that sort of like does the male vulnerability have its limits, and like when do they when do you cross the line?
I've talked about this with you and probably other people multiple times, and I don't want to like say it's a problem with like the sex, the male sex. It's gender's this constructed thing. We all know this, and I think this movie shows how this constructed gender really can fuck some people up.
In a hyper masculine field, no less. Like being a mobster. This is not like
I mean, the women in this are in a sort of, if they're not kept in a cubby somewhere, they're in a chokehold. I mean, it's
we only see them from their homes in a domestic space.
Yeah, they don't exist in the world
except for my bus lady.
Except for the bus lady.
Except for my bus lady.
Love the bus lady.
And like Nikki's like date at the bar for like 5 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
barely counts. Yeah, it definitely speaks to gender hurting all of us, kind of. And I don't even think that's its point. Like, that's just a message one can receive from
it's like just it is an important piece of context when you watch something like this, especially because of the way.
I also kind of like, I loved The Heartbreak Kid. I loved A New Leaf. But in some ways, I think I love this the most.
It's a very, I would say of the three, this feels like the most... I don't know. It feels like the most complete film in its own way.
And it's all her. I mean, it's because A New Leaf, she adapted from a story. The Heartbreak Kid was written by Neil Simon.
It feels most completely hers.
This is like, and it's about Philadelphia, and it's set there, it's filmed there, it's where she grew up. It's
like that sort of that cinema verite.
This is auteur shit right here.
Yeah, this is so her.
And the fact that it was such an unflinching look at friendship. The kind of movie that I think the older you get, the more it just gets better.
Yeah.
Because you've contended with this surely at some point now.
Yeah.
It just felt, for lack of better words, just like a grown-up movie.
Yeah, this is a very like adult.
Very
movie.
adult.
It's a very I'm an adult.
Yeah.
Not in like necessarily a pretentious way, but it is just like you're dealing with some very mature issues that you can really appreciate the older you get.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think of myself as old. I'm 35.
Sure.
But I now...
Grandma.
Yeah, I know. I'm just kidding. But I now have lived long enough and had enough relationships. You savor that knowledge, because it is like not the only thing you get, but it's like, I'm sort of glad that I can see this movie and that I do see myself and I do see relationships in it because I'm like... hold on to that energy of this is not good, because try not to let this happen again. You know?
Just so you'd have to go through these trials and errors.
I mean, I had a friend who made me question friendship, like on a really profound level, like, because I used to think, a friend is somebody you do anything for. No, it's not.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
No.
You need boundaries.
You need to contest with your fear of being perceived as transactional. Like you need to understand. Yeah, exactly. There is a point. There is a limit.
There is a limit.
Yeah.
I mean, I had somebody who was dealing with a lot of issues, something really intensely difficult. They were like under this like intense legal scrutiny and pressure. And at some point they called, and at the end of the conversation, I was given to understand that he was hanging up to kill himself, which is a lot. And he didn't, which... Good.
But that is so much to weigh on you, like and on him, but just what an awful situation.
And when we spoke again, I had to bring it up. It wasn't like
because it affected you. It was
he didn't begin the conversation like, I'm so sorry, about last time. It was like, no, it was kind of like, well, that boiled over and now it's a new day. And, and
it's like
he just wanted to chat. He wanted to just chat. And I had to broach it. And it was one of the first times I ever actually said no and was like, I literally was like, don't do that again. Mm-hmm. Full stop.
Yeah.
It changed my ideas about friendship. I was like, I can't carry that. This movie was, having to kill that relationship, like, no, this person isn't going to be shot on my front porch, but they are facing some really serious charges. I can't get into it. It's really awful.
But I do understand.
Their life is on the line.
Right.
And I had to walk away, that is still something that's difficult.
Yeah.
And I feel for people who anyone who has a loved one who is incarcerated
you can't help someone who refuses to help themselves.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah. And it just, even before, the relationship was still very much out of balance.
Right.
And then something terrible happens and then you feel like, oh, I can't leave now. Because they're in trouble.
Yeah.
That won't look good. And then you just get deeper and deeper.
Well, this just sounds like the plot of Midsummer.
Yeah, a little bit. Anyway, I won't say like all I could think about was that when I was watching it, because it wasn't true.
But it was clearly very relatable.
Boundaries are really important.
Absolutely.
I think that's really just all I want to say to that respect. Would you watch this movie again?
Not right away.
Not right away.
But I think I would definitely be open to
it needs a rest.
To rewatch it. But yeah, I mean, it is a lot, and like it does end on a very sort of somber, abrupt note. And
like if I found out this was going to get screened at a theater, I would go.
I would go totally. Like to have a shared audience experience, I'd be totally down for that. But realistically, I don't see this as being something that I would be necessarily.
It's not a Heartbreak Kid.
Heartbreak Kid is much more, I would say, much more palatable and as a repeat watch. It is, it is also a comedy.
I mean, and there's relief. There's more relief. Like when somebody's being awful, there's some relief. There's no relief in this.
Yeah, this does not give you that. There are definitely going to be moments, especially if you are triggered by violence, domestic violence, and assault. This is probably not going to be your cup of tea. Because there's so much of that in this movie.
It is a mob movie.
It's not all that, but it's going to happen frequently enough and casually enough that if you're not kind of like, I guess not on board, if you will, but like if you're not sort of, I guess, in for the long haul with it, then it's gonna turn you off pretty quick.
It's challenging, but I think it feels to me like when I was like, this is auteur shit. Like what I mean is like, it reminds me of, these films where they're written for the screen. Yeah. The director is the writer. They're character driven. They're, often like set on location. It's not sets. And it's something that's personal to the director. And this checks all these boxes, and a lot of those movies end very somber because you're exploring something inside you, and a lot of times we can find joy in ourselves, but I think a lot of us spend more time thinking about the things that didn't go well. We don't spend a lot of, the rush of success wears off so fast,
right?
But we spend years lying in bed thinking about our mistakes.
Absolutely.
So I think there's, I don't know.
This is very much a movie about those kinds of feelings.
Yeah.
And it also is just, it's just a very sobering picture of what a non-romantic or even funny you know, buffoon type picture. 'Cause I think sometimes people think, oh, the opposite of Godfather is something like Nice Guys, where they're like fucking up and being idiots. And it's like, no, I think
it's not a buddy comedy.
The opposite of something like Godfather, and I think maybe you look at it like a triangle of like, this is the romantic, serious one, this is the comedic thing, and this is the very like
the gritty, down
and this
to
is
earth,
the
real
really
thing.
kind of the shitty side of it.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah,
I mean, it
a
was
very realist kind of picture. Yeah.
I loved it.
Sweaty. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, you can smell it. I definitely would watch it again, but I'm with you. I think it needs a little rest.
Yes,
it need to give that a little nap.
Absolutely,
before it's roused again. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, guys. Have a fun week.
Have the greatest week. You can follow us on social media at various places at Fresh Movie Pod.
Yeah, Fresh Movie Pod.
You know, if you find it, we're there. If you can't, we're not. I'm sorry.
Yeah, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts.
As always,
all that fun stuff.
Yeah, that stuff really, really helps. I know you hear us say it. Maybe you tune out at this point. Don't tune out. Write us a review.
Get back here. You get back here now.
Like, log in right now. Get that little purple Apple Pod, like search for it, whatever, you know.
Where do you think you're going?
Yeah, you got to do that. We also love emails. You can email us at abreathoffreshmovie@gmail.com. Try not to steal money from mob bosses.
Yeah. We love Elaine May. Yay.